He doesn't look shy, but he is, right?
Usually not.
Yeah.
You are much cooler from the future, you know. Next
know.
year, maybe the interviews will be like, you know, metaverse-based or something.
I think we can talk to Dinesh later on about how
teleport
we can do
us
this,
into the future.
Into the future. Now, we just heard Sarah talk about energy futures, and a lot about the future and about energy is to a large extent connected to producing and consuming less energy. If we produce the same amount and consume less, we still, harm our future. Now, zero emissions, or zero net emissions, are highly ambitious targets, let's say. But when you talk about the future, you can be less preoccupied about the truth, because when you set a target for 2050, it's not yours actually, right? As a company. Now, actual ambition without progress is not really that useful. You, on the other hand, represent a company which is, let's just say, the biggest company, the biggest software company in the world. How do you look at this new, or actually old challenge called less emissions, zero emissions idea?
Ciprian, first of all, thank you for having us and for the invitation. I'm super happy to be here. The vibe is amazing of this event. The question and the topic is, I would say, quite complex and also not very easy to answer in a couple of minutes. So I will try to overly simplify for the sake of this discussion. I think when we're looking at net zero, this is an ambition and also to a certain degree a dream about the future. We all want to live a better future for our kids, for our families, and for the next human race that will happen. But currently, I think this net zero concept, I will maybe expand it a little bit. It's not just about climate. It's not just about the change of weather. We all know that in Romania, suddenly, for a couple of years, we only have summer and winter. There are no longer spring and autumns, or there is a lot of rain, tropical storms in the summer and stuff like that. But it's not just about the weather. It's about the food shortages. This is a very present tense topic. We know that, for example, grain is running out to a certain degree. It's about water shortages. There's some areas in the world where water is actually a premium, I would say a VIP commodity suddenly. So there is a lot to talk about when we talk about net zero. But if we are to link, for example, software and net zero, how you actually use software to get to a net zero scenario, I would say that software is or should be actually used as a tool to measure. We want to know and we want to act, we want to manage as companies, as institutions, as governments, as society. But in order to manage and act, we need to measure. You cannot just take decisions out of thin air, which sometimes it happens. It's the practice, but they lead to very wrong results. So in order to get there, I think companies or basically the whole institution, the whole society, they need to come to something that we call common practices. What is a common practice? How do we measure the net impact of our activity? What is the single or fundamental unit of tracking impact of our activities? And software usually, does that. It allows you to measure very clearly. We still have challenges in the world. For example, looking at green gas emissions. Every country or every institution out there has their own way of seeing life and seeing world. So to me, I think that's fundamental. Integrating tools to track, measure, act, and obviously see our impact of our activities. I think this is something that software needs to do.
Let's do it like a startup should do. You first do an assessment of a
gap analysis. A gap analysis.
Do an analysis, market analysis, right?
Yeah.
So you measure to some extent. Now, you measure and you see something. You see also progress or no progress. What about action? So what do you think? Not just what the company like Microsoft and all the other software technology, but actually what can technology do besides measuring? How can we use tech to reduce greenhouse, and not just greenhouse, because you talked about water, agri.
I would offer a couple of perspectives, Ciprian. I think, first of all, I've been an entrepreneur 20 years of my life, and I know what it means to take decisions by feeling. In Romanian we call this, the belly decision mechanisms. You take a decision because your stomach tells you one way or the other.
You have a belly decision.
Yeah, especially when you drink a lot of coffee, which is the kind of like the diet in startups. But I think what you can do. I'll give you a couple of ideas. We as Microsoft, we have a very ambitious goal. By 2030, we want to reduce by half our carbon emissions, and also at the same time, half is not enough. Okay, obviously, it's a lot. But we want at the same time to physically remove the rest of the carbon that we put out there. So by 2030, we aim at being carbon neutral. For a company
how do you take it out?
Well, you plant trees for the beginning, or you invest in technology that takes carbon out of the air and it creates concrete bricks that you can, build highways or, skyports or whatever. But even more importantly, and let's think about it in perspective, because we talk a lot about the future, but we also live our past, the actions and the consequences of the past decisions. Also by 2050, we aim to be able to go back into the past and basically zero all our carbon emissions that we put out there from 1975 when we started as a company until today. So, just as an idea and, to put some fuel into the fire for the rest of the companies in the room today, it's doable, if you take actions on it.
What age will you be in 2050?
Probably carbon dioxide by then,
No. What age will you be?
Yes, I answered correctly.
So when you think about 2050, it sounds super science fiction, but it's literally some of us, not all of us in the room, remember 30 years before. So it's not really.
It's not that far. Yeah.
I was, I don't know, second grade or something.
Yeah. Well, 30 years ago, I would say actually go a little bit further because I'm quite a dinosaur today. I would say 40 years ago, my winters in Bucharest were playing in the street with snow probably 2 or 3 meters high, which today is just a dream. This winter it was almost spring.
So you talked about Bucharest, and we have some people here from other cities, Sofia, I think, and Athens, etc. Any examples from Romania or CE of solutions?
What this means? Yeah, well, there are a lot. Obviously, from our position, we see a lot, and we also try to contribute a lot to those changes. We've seen, for example, Hungary remote managing their waste plants and reducing, for example, electricity consumption and pollution by 30% by using Microsoft Cloud technologies. We've seen Poland, for example, doing water management using Microsoft technologies, again, reducing cost and impact. We've seen, because you're going to ask, we've seen Romania, for example, Securify from Romania, and how cool is that they are using AI to manage oil pipelines, thousands of kilometers of oil pipelines, managing spillage, managing waste, managing repairs, managing costs to fix oil pipelines using AI, So suddenly this becomes tangible, it's no longer just future, it's practical terms, it's happening now, and will continue to accelerate in this direction. And even more, because I think, coming back to where we started, you need to manage, so you need data, actually. When you talk about future and, all those great technologies that we are seeing out there, including a net zero scenario, you need data to measure. So what we did, we actually published a future index. You're going to love this, This is an amazing tool, man. And, you have to go there and you have to dig it up. But, it's on the web. It basically links 2,300 data sources out there, all public data, all very legit, nothing, chocolate and unicorns. But, 2,300 data sources around our region, around Romania, very accurate data. And then this index basically gives you the foundation, the pure mathematical and statistical foundation, to think about correlations and to see how future is actually impacting by the decisions that we're currently taking. And I'll just offer a perspective, Obviously, I'm a tech company, so I love tech. And we've seen countries that are advanced in technologies. Earlier, some of the speakers were talking about the DESI study. This is a study that unfortunately places Romania last in Europe in terms of technology penetration. Awful, I know. But, we can see countries that are advanced in technology, direct correlation to a greener life in that country, direct correlation to quality of air because of technology.
With corruption?
Well, I won't go into that. I know it's a pretty funny topic for Romania, but I'll give you one correlation that is actually the opposite of that. High-tech countries, high-tech digital countries, direct correlation to a higher standard of living. Which translates in higher salaries for everybody. It makes a lot of sense, but I hope that the government representatives are still in the room.
So what you're saying is that more technology brings more
welfare,
wellness,
and
wellness.
Definitely does. We've seen that in the past 2 years. I mean, COVID was here for 2 years, unfortunately. We've seen companies that took over technology being more resilient. Resilient is a term that I just love. What does it mean? You resist better, but it's not just about resisting, saving some jobs and something like that, but also being able to grow. And we've seen, for example, application of technology that is, I would say common sense by now, telemedicine, happening in Romania, Romanian companies using that, being able to actually, I think, growing by 40% in a year where the economy was basically under war by COVID. Amazing story.
I would come back. I mean, I have 2 questions on this, but I want to come back to something that Sebastian Produja said or meant. So we're among the last, and when it comes to DESI and how businesses use technology. Basically, you can either look at it on one side, they say it's really bad, or you can look at it and say that's really good. That means there's a lot of market to grow. But you can't really pick one side. You have both sides in the same time. It's not a coin, it's a cube or whatever. What do you think the role of government should be in pushing for more technology? And then what is the role of the private sector to get most of the private sector?
Don't get me started, Ciprian, here.
We have
how much? Do we have like an hour now?
No.
Okay. So first of all, it's true. We are the absolute last in Europe. So we should be proud of this to a certain degree, because I think the way I look at this is through the lens of potential. I'm a sales guy, okay, so I will always see opportunity out there. But it is true, being last basically allows you as a country to evolve and to grow in any direction you pick. Just pick one, okay? Just do something. Like I like to tell my colleagues in Microsoft, execution beats strategy every single day for breakfast. If you just talk blah, 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 and you do nothing, which sometimes is the case with our esteemed government institutions. But I'm happy that Sebastian joined. He's obviously, I think, something that I call a breath of fresh air. Someone that has seen the world, outside of Romania, and he knows that some things are working, some things are not, and hopefully he will be able to make a difference. I heard him say that within a year, we will see results. So that's a code that you guys should use. Put it out there, make it accountable for what he said, because that's actually what we need. Romania is not a poor country, and this is a little bit of it's the other side of the coin that you mentioned. We have the resources, we have the money. The National Plan for Development and Resilience, or whatever the name is launching or should launch with, I think, billions of euros of investments, including into green energy, including into technology, including into all of that. But the government, and it is the government, they need to act. They need to put up the laws. They need to put up the frameworks that we need as a company and as an economy to operate. They need to do the investments and the macro projects that they have been talking about. Even just doing them imperfectly, it's still a great news for Romania, because it will move us forward.
What can the business community do to bring more businesses, SMEs in particular, to become more digitalized, to use technology, to readapt their business model?
Yeah, well, this is what we're doing, Ciprian. I think from our company perspective, leading this technology transformation, we talk a lot about digitization. What does that mean? Give the people the tool to do their job easier. Give the people the tools to do more with their time. Give the people back some time to spend on their family. So the private sector is very engaged. We have stories in the country, starting from banks to hospitals to schools, that are using technology actually to make this difference. So it's a joint effort. We are going to do it together. hopefully, together is a keyword here. And, just to give some perspectives, on what can be achieved, Microsoft, for example, has this global initiative together with ClimateWorks, in which we signed up this pledge and we put up $1 billion in an investment fund to actually drive change in this direction, So we are putting our money where our word is, and, we're trying to make things happen. And I encourage other companies to join. I don't know, there are plenty of companies doing things in sustainability and in the green field. And, we also set ourselves goals because we like to measure, what we do. And, I told you about the 2030. We call this the 100-100-0. By 2030, we want that 100% of the electricity that we consume across 100% of our operations come from a carbon neutral, net zero, what we started scenario. So for us, this is a clear goal, and we hope that we'll get there.
This is good news for the SMEs that produce stuff that you can buy as well. It's not just what we can buy from Microsoft, but what you can buy from others as well. Now, I have a question for Bogdan, outside of any company hats or entrepreneurial hats.
Ask me if I like to cook, for example.
Do you think he likes to cook?
Yes.
Say yes. I would say yes. But it's not, you know what?
You know more.
So if you were to make a cake, you like cakes? I don't know.
Yeah, of course. I have 2 daughters. So I'm an expert in cookies.
Yes, I have 2 daughters and I'm not. As well. Okay, if you were to look at their life in the next 20 years, what is the big thing you think as a father, but also as a business leader, what do you think we need to give to our employees and our children so that in the next 20 years, 10 years, they are in a better place than without this advice or whatever we do?
If I would be to pick just one thing, and it's super difficult, because having 2 daughters actually, it's an enormous challenge every day, So I have
but
to be,
yeah,
I'm an expert in pink, and dresses and all that. But if I would be to give them just one thing, I think would be the courage to think, And I specifically say courage because, our educational system is not helping you think, they help you memorize. The society is not supporting people that have opinions, particularly, or that they think out of the box, or that they challenge the status quo, exactly what you guys are doing here. So for me, I would just say, have the courage of your own opinions, just think, try, experiment, fail. I especially like part of the motto that Facebook had in the beginning, fail fast. It's an amazing learning opportunity. That's what I would give them. Courage to be yourself.
Oh. I hope you also have courage to give them courage, because it's not easy, especially with teenagers or future teenagers.
I know, man. Teenage comes, and then you have to go purses, dresses, all that.
I buy dresses as well. Now,
Makeup.
Thank you so much, Bogdan. This was Bogdan Putinică from Microsoft. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Mulțumesc.